because his lawyers have demanded to see Mrs. Giuffre, that's the woman who has accused him of having sex with her when she was 17 on 3 separate occasions in 2001. They've asked for her mental health records and confidential notes from counselling sessions in an effort to discredit her. Is that a good idea? We'll be speaking to an expert on that next. In the meantime, here's the news headlines with Tim Humphrey.
The chairman of the Conservative Party is calling for a culture change at number 10 following lockdown parties. Oliver Dowden says he's disgusted at the revelations and thinks Boris Johnson should stay on as Prime Minister. A man's being questioned by police in France following the death of a 5-year-old British girl who was reportedly struck by a skier in the Alps. Officials say she'd been taking part in a lesson with other children when it happened in Haute-Savoie yesterday. Novak Djokovic has left Australia after judges upheld the government's cancellation of his visa and his deportation. The player was seen boarding a flight for Dubai from Melbourne. The weather, most areas dry tonight with long clear periods of fog patches, cloudy and windy in the far north, some rain at times, a low of -1.
This is LBC. This is Joe. Hello. Joe is passionate about flooring. Wood, laminate, even a classic textured tile. He loves his job and takes great pride in every little detail. Joe is with Trusted Trader. And there are thousands more just like him, all experts at what they do. So next time you need something doing, try Trusted Trader to find a verified local tradesperson with great reviews. You can always trust a trader. Cheers, Joe.
In a quarter of a mile, take the exit towards Heathrow Airport.
I value knowing that my investments are all in order. I value having low fees so I can keep more of my returns. And I value that my investment firm has its clients' best interests at heart.
Join the 30 million investors around the world who value getting...
Take the exit towards Heathrow Airport.
Thank God. Value to investors. When investing, your capital is at risk.
In a quarter of a mile, keep left at the fork to continue towards Southern Perimeter Road.
Just scan your favourite foods with your phone, then swipe to see loads of healthier choices for your next shop. Magic! Like sugary yogurts for healthier ones, or cake bars to yummy watermelon. Download the free NHS Food Scanner app and find healthier swaps for your family. Just scan, swipe, swap. Better health.
Keep left at the fork.
Winter warmer sale with deals hotter than a steaming cup of cocoa. Like our super fast reliable fibre broadband, now from just £22 a month for 24 months, with average speeds from 38 to 145 megabits per second, and award-winning customer experience. Brilliant deals that make sense. Search TalkTalk Fibre. Offers end 16th Feb. TalkTalk for everyone.
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the second exit and stay on Southern Perimeter Road.
Is a network of over 600 independent electrical stores. They've been right on your high street for generations, each one offering great local service and value on big brand home appliances like AEG, Belling and Stoves. Everything comes direct from your local store. Get the brands you love. Pop in, go online, or give them a call. Independent stores supporting local communities, just how it should be.
On LBC, call 0345 6060 973.
6:35. We're going to get back to your calls in just a moment about the merits of continuing to fund Met police bodyguards for both the Duke of York. And it's not that Prince Harry wants us to fund these.
Exit the roundabout onto Southern Perimeter Road. Continue on Southern Perimeter Road for 1.5 miles.
Private bodyguards who don't carry guns when I am in the UK. So express your views on that on 0345 6060 973. Let's just go to a different aspect of the Duke of York story now. Now, Prince Andrew has been accused of victim blaming by legal experts and campaigners after demanding to see Virginia Giuffre's mental health records and confidential notes from counselling sessions in an effort to discredit her. The Duke of York's lawyers have asked to interview Dr. Judith Lightfoot, a psychologist, and Giuffre's husband, Robert, under oath for any information about alleged emotional and psychological harm and damages. The lawyers indicate in a newly published court paper that Giuffre's civil action against Andrew in America, in which he alleges she was raped as a teenager and sexually assaulted by him when she was 17, may be the result of false memories. Right, well, let's bring in Dr. Charlotte Proudman now. She's a human rights barrister specialising in violence against women and girls. Thanks for joining me, Charlotte, if I may call you that. This is victim blaming then, but then if he claims he is innocent, how on earth does he suggest that his accuser isn't speaking the truth without running the risk of being accused of being a victim blamer?
Yeah, well, there's other ways, isn't there, of proving that you are telling the truth without having to trawl through a victim of trauma, because she is. You know, she says she was groomed, she was sexually abused by Epstein and Maxwell, which is separate to what's happened with Prince Andrew, albeit linked according to her. So there are other ways of attempting to prove that, rather than actually going through some of those intimate and personal details that can be made of anybody. You know, when you go into a counselling session, if you've experienced trauma and you understand that that relationship is therapeutic and it's 100% confidential, and then you later learn that that information could be disclosed to the court, not only to the court, your alleged perpetrator, and can be used against you to trawl through for potential inconsistencies where there might be no inconsistencies, and then it's put to them that their memories are false, which in my view is another form of gaslighting. It's effectively saying that your version of reality is false. And I think, and I've certainly advocated for this in other cases I've worked on, that allowing a perpetrator to look through numerous, sometimes unredacted, sometimes years-long worth of medical records, including mental health records, is another form of abuse. But this time the courts are perpetrating it if they allow that to happen.
Excuse my ignorance here, Charlotte, but I didn't realise that psychologists, therapists, counsellors were able to divulge their private conversations with their clients.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Of course, I don't know what...
In a quarter of a mile at Western Perimeter Road roundabout, take the first exit and stay on Southern Perimeter Road.
Ownership of, say, my client, so the victim or the complainant, and if the court orders them to disclose those medical records, say for example all of them since the age of 16, which happened in one of my cases, then they would be under an obligation to provide those themselves without necessarily getting an order against the counsellor. So the onus is on the victim or complainant to provide them.
I understand. So
exit the roundabout onto Southern Perimeter Road.
On Twitter, I often get criticised for it, but in the interest of balance...
In 200 yards, at the roundabout, take the second exit onto Airport Way, A3113.
Consider here, and there's also the Duke of York, right? How does he better defend this? Because if he is vehemently protesting his innocence and said that these allegations are effectively, what he's saying is they're made up, how does he go about proving that? You're, I'm sure, going to say, well, we need to know that he was at Pizza Express in Woking, etc., right? But if he's, what I'm saying is, if people who are accused of what is a heinous crime, and they think that the other person is making it up, how can they actually ever say that?
Exit the roundabout onto Airport Way.
You're going to say, well, you can't possibly accuse a victim of making
Continue on Airport Way for half a mile.
Saying you can't possibly accuse a victim of making anything. Of course people do all the time, which is why there are rape trials in criminal courts and family courts and civil courts, because the accused says you've made this up. So most of the cases which even reach the police or through the civil courts, they are challenged, and you arrive then in a legal system because the accuser denies it. I mean, like you rightly say, one of the ways that he could potentially say this didn't happen is by showing that he was at Pizza Express, specifically within a time frame when he wouldn't have been able to be at the night.
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the fourth exit onto the M25 slip road to M4, M40.
Which he says he has no recollection of, didn't happen, might have been doctored, etc. And then to cross-examine him on the veracity of what he says, to cross-examine her on that veracity. But you know, what I'd also say is, for the sake of balance, is that if it is right, and of course I don't agree with this, but if it's right that you should disclose her medical records, well then why don't we disclose his?
Yes.
Why don't we see what's in his records?
Let's find out what it is about his inability to sweat.
Absolutely. That's one of his primary cases, that he can't sweat, so that can't have happened in the way that she has described. Well, we've seen no evidence to suggest that is in fact accurate. She's asking for it, but of course sweating is very different to reliving trauma and to going through those notes with a counsellor. And I think one of the key things here is that, and this is...
Exit the roundabout onto the slip road.
Victims find themselves in. If they have experienced trauma, they're told that they are misremembering things, so their memories are false. If they haven't experienced trauma, then they're told that they can't have been abused, because if they were...
Continue for half a mile.
Trauma. So you literally cannot win.
Yes, I completely take that point. And I think equally we don't want to go down the route of this sense that victims, survivors of sexual assault are in some way muzzled for fear that their entire history is going to be brought out before a courtroom. Having said that, just as he needs to prove that he was at Pizza Express in Woking, so too does Mrs. Giuffre need to prove that he wasn't, that he was at Tramp nightclub, right?
Absolutely, so the onus is on her, the burden is on her.
In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M25.
Which is interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
It's not as if it's a criminal case involving a more serious crime where it would be beyond reasonable doubt. What Mrs. Giuffre needs to prove is on a balance of probabilities that she was sexually assaulted and raped as a teenager by the Duke, correct?
So she needs to show that it's more likely than not, so 51%. And I do these cases every single day on the balance of probabilities. Sometimes it can seem as if it's almost on a criminal standard because the stakes are so high and it's so difficult for complainants to prove what's actually happened, particularly when there isn't the evidence to support that because it goes back years.
Continue on M25 for 1 mile.
And she will give evidence and she will be cross-examined, and that whole process of cross-examination is extremely grueling. Let me tell you, every time I see this in civil cases and family cases, I think to myself, this is abusive. I'm watching abuse being played out in courtrooms. And, there are a number of ways in which, I know we won't get into, how that process could be better for complainants. But the Domestic Abuse Commissioner, in a report that she commissioned, showed that the majority of victims going through family courts and criminal courts are re-traumatised by the process. This can't happen because otherwise complainants and victims are not going to want to come forward.
No, they're going
and that's the real balance here.
Do you know what, Charlotte? We'll have that discussion for another hour at some point. Thank you so much for joining me, and also just for talking us through this, because it is complicated. It again needs to be stressed that the Duke of York does protest his innocence. That was Charlotte Proudman, and she's a human rights barrister specialising in violence against women and girls. Right, back to the initial conversation about...
In a quarter of a mile, at junction 15, use the left lane to take the M4 exit to Reading, Slough.
Police protection when he comes back to the UK, because the threat is the same to him as when he's in the US, where he pays for bodyguards privately, but who of course carry guns because he's...
Use the left lane to exit at junction 15, then keep left at the fork.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
Whether you're a royalist or not is irrelevant.
Keep left at the fork.
Of the country. If you're the Prime Minister of the country, you get protection for the rest of your life. These two guys, Prince Andrew and Prince Harry...
Continue on M4 for 1.5 miles.
Protection for all the rest of their lives. Say, God forbid, in the next 40 years, whether say for Andrew he's innocent or guilty is irrelevant. He's going to live for at least possibly 40-odd years. If God forbid, for instance, he gets kidnapped, is Charles or William or George and whoever's king at the time going to pay the ransom? They're walking around. They didn't ask to be in the family. They were born in. So because they're human beings, it's natural that someone's going to try and get some money out of them. Maybe they need protection, not just guys with little guns. As your specialist said before, they need people that know what's happening, intelligence, etc. If they can afford it, great. If they can't, great. They need protection. So,
but Darren, just to be devil's advocate there, yes, I agree in the sense that they are born into the royal family, and what else are they to do? But there are other people that are born into the royal family, most notably Prince Andrew's daughters, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, who don't have Met Police bodyguards. They've got privately funded ones. So what's the difference?
But they're a higher target because they're up the chain as far as the Queen's son, the Queen's grandson. That is, you can't get much higher than that.
Yeah, so you think people further up the pecking order, so to speak, those who are closest to those who are the most senior royals, should still have taxpayer-funded protection?
Yes, because just because they've got letters in front of their name, it's like just because a doctor has got a load of the letters after his name doesn't mean they're good, but these guys are there, the top of the chain, with or without, whether they're called Mr. or Mrs. or whatever.
Thank you, Darren. John doesn't agree.
In a quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
Taxpayers' duty for security for any multi-millionaire royal. This should be in reference to the Duke of York, because Harry's saying he will pay for his security himself. He just wants it to be from the Met. I would like my money to be spent on vulnerable people who have been born into poverty, not privilege. Why can't they pay their security from their own income? Says John in Bristol. Keep your calls coming in on this 0345 6060 973. You're listening to Camilla Tominey on LBC, and it's
Keep right to stay on M4.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Rachel Johnson.
Novak Djokovic has now been deported from Oz after a farcical performance from the Australian.
Continue on M4 for 4 miles.
Player in the world be any threat to public health.
Rachel Johnson on LBC.
Mums, dads,
annoying brothers
and sisters. May we present to you, drumroll please, the Food Scanner app. Just scan your favourite foods with your phone
and swipe to see loads of healthier choices for your next shop.
Magic!
Like sugary yogurts for healthier ones, or cake bars to yummy molten ones. Download the free NHS Food Scanner app and find healthier swaps for your family. Just scan, swipe, swap. Better health. Let's do this.
The Wi-Fi's down. Wi-Fi. This is broadband rage. It happens when your internet drops out and the red mist descends. Why suffer like this? Get the UK's first unbreakable Wi-Fi. Only BT's new hybrid home broadband is backed up by EE's mobile network. One day all broadband will be like this.
4G coverage required. 4G connection takes up to 175 seconds. Verify bt.com/verify hybrid.
Look forward to flying again as Singapore Airlines brings you Southeast Asia. Explore Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia and beyond on board the world's most awarded airline. Enjoy an unforgettable experience with incredible service and warm hospitality. Flying to Thailand from just £397 return. Book with flexibility today at singaporeairlines.com. Singapore Airlines, a great way to fly. Date exclusions and terms apply.
Welcome to the Rosie Hotel.
Hello. We're a little early, but thought we might take a dip in the pool before we check in.
Of course. Sorry, Mrs. Cook, but it looks like your stay isn't for another 5 months.
Yes, that's right.
Like getting your money's worth? Enjoy a 99p Mayo chicken, part of the McDonald's Saver menu. From 11 a.m, price of participation may vary.
1977. Sweaty clubs, screaming singers, volume turned to full. I loved it. But maybe I went too often, because recently my hearing's not been so good. But now I'm back. Got sorted out of Specsavers with their advanced hearing aids. Was like music to my ears.
To find out more or book a free hearing test, search Specsavers Hearing.
If someone has COVID-19, they breathe it out in particles. Particles that linger in the air like smoke. But 1 in 3 people who have the virus have no symptoms and could be breathing it onto others without knowing. So when you go out, wear a face covering in enclosed busy spaces to help reduce the amount of COVID-19 particles in the air. Stop COVID-19 hanging.
In 2 miles, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
Welcome back, it's 10 to 7. Steve in Southampton has texted to say, Camilla, who are we as public to decide whether they have security or not? I'm a security close protection officer and look after millionaires. However, Prince Harry and Andrew will still have a threat against them and they are still royal blood. So let's get a grip as a nation and stop getting involved with things that don't concern us. Okay? Helen has said, how petty we have become in the UK. I'm no royalist, but of course he should get Met protection, even if he pays. This is about Harry, who's offered to pay for a Met police bodyguard. At the moment, the Home Office is denying him that level of protection, saying that he should just bring his own private bodyguards over. But he makes the point, probably validly, that his protection officers, who he has over in the US, can carry guns there, but not in London, if he comes over for the Platinum Jubilee celebrations. But Helen continues, as a former active duty soldier and prince, he is a target for the Taliban. Probably a good point, and particularly so, one would imagine the threat against Prince Harry has gone up in the aftermath of the fall of Kabul, surely. Sue has said, I hate the phrase stepping back. Prince Harry left his job, a job with great perks and privileges. Which job in the world continues to pay when somebody has left? Okay, let's speak to Dave now in Honiton, in Devon. Dave, what's your view?
Oh, hi, Camilla.
Hello.
The way that I see it, I mean, the original question was about protection for Harry and Andrew. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes. So, just to be clear, Dave, Harry is saying he'd like his Met Police protection back when he's in the UK and he's willing to pay for it. And at the moment, the Home Office is saying no, because you've left the royal family. And I'm asking an ancillary question, which is, should the Duke of York continue to have taxpayer-funded bodyguards when he is now being viewed as a private citizen?
Well, the way that I see it...
In a quarter of a mile, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
So, if he was to pay for the Met protection, which is testament to the Met, to be honest, let him pay no cost to the taxpayer. So
exit at junction 6.
They should charge him as a business and make a profit.
But there's no precedent for this. This is the trouble. As far as the Home Office is concerned, this would be...
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the third exit onto Tuns Lane, A355.
The Duchess of Sussex leaving the royal family and having a profile overseas means that a new precedent needs to be set. But from the Met's point of view, of course, they will say, well, we're limited on numbers, we're limited on time, we haven't got the time to invest in this, and as he is now no longer on our watch, why should we make an exception?
Well, I think they've always got time to make money, and I think he if he wants to pay for it, he should probably receive it.
Okay.
So that's,
but what about the Duke of York, Dave?
Yeah, what about him? No.
You see, this is where the argument comes unstuck, because people are talking about...
I think we could easily wander off the point here, because he has some serious problems.
Yes.
So I think you've got to forget about that. I mean, the question was, should he have Met protection? Well, he's still a prince. He hasn't opted out of the royal family. He's still part of the royal family.
Well, he hasn't got a public-facing role anymore. I mean, that statement was unequivocal, and it said that he would be behaving as a private citizen in handling this legal case. And there was also royal sources confirmed last week when we asked, well, what happens if he's cleared in future legal proceedings? And they said,
exit the roundabout onto Tuns Lane.
Affiliations are going to be handed over to other members of the royal family, and they won't be handed back. I.e.,
in a quarter of a mile, slight left towards Sippenham Lane.
That's fine. He will still be a high-profile target. He is still... I don't agree with everything that's going on with him. Don't ask me what I think about the situation, because that's a different matter. But he's still a high-profile target, and he's not opted out of the royal family. He is still part of the royal family, and as such, I feel he should receive automatic protection from the Met.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Dave. Ashley's in...
Slight left towards Sippenham Lane.
I agree. I believe Harry should be allowed to pay for his own Met protection in the UK. What we got to...
continue for 1.5 miles.
Until, I believe it was around 2013. He's been third in line to the throne.
Yes.
He's been at the forefront of the royal family. He's probably he was at one point probably one of the most popular members of the royal family. So when we talk about level of threat to his life, you know, there are tons of people, you know, across the globe who could pick him out of a crowd of 100. When we talk about other members of the royal family, probably a little bit down the pecking order, it might be a bit difficult for a lot of people just to pick them out in the crowd, you know, of 100 people, let's just say. He's still a prominent member of the royal family, whether he is in full-time service or whether he is not, or whether he stepped back. So, unless the Home Office can come forth and say, do you know what, Harry, the security you bring from the US will be adequate to protect you, they won't come forward and say that, because the threat probably hasn't changed, if not it's increased. So unless they can come forward and say, do you know what, the threat against your life has changed, we think it's a lot lower, your security will be sufficient enough. If they can assure him of that, then hey, go for it, Harry, bring your own protection. Should anything happen outside of that, then they would have a lot of questions to answer. But unless they can do that for him, which I don't think they can, why should he not be able to pay for his own? He's paying for it.
Yes, he's offered to pay. But then the Duke of York, in the Duke of York's case, actually, just very briefly, the Duke of York would get taxpayer-funded bodyguards until that point that it's decided that he shouldn't. So should he or shouldn't he, in a word?
I mean, I don't think Andrew in the other case should be. I think at this point, if everything else has been removed from him, that all should come with that also.
Okay.
He's had his patronage removed. He's had all his military titles removed. The security alone should come with it. Listen, if you've lost all of that, it's got to come. If you'd like to have it, we can give it to you, but you would need to pay for that yourself.
Okay. Thank you, Ashley. Kamal's in Southwark. Kamal, what do you think?
Yes. Hi, Camilla. I think, I'm German, and I think it's very cute you have this royal family here in the country. And I think if Harry is here, I think he 100% should be protected. He is the grandson of the Queen. If anything would happen here in this country to him, I think it would be really, really awful, especially at where the Queen is at the moment in her life.
Yes.
And if he lives in the States, that's a different story. It's his decision. He lives over there, and then he should have his protection, his own protection there.
And what about the Duke of York, Kamal?
The Duke, as long as he is proven guilty, he definitely should have protection. Whether he should have protection after any court case or something is a different story. I can't get my head around about that. I hate to say, but I think he should have protection as well.
Okay, thank you. No, fair enough.
He's the son of the Queen.
Yes.
Stop. I mean, it would be awful if something happened to him.
Indeed. Stuart's in Battersea. Stuart, what's your view of this?
Well, the Queen's one of the richest people in the world.
Yes.
Why can't she just go in her pocket and just pay for a grandson's security or Prince Charles? I mean, I don't know what everybody's talking about.
Oh, so you don't think that we should be funding their security at all?
Well, no, it is what it is, but I'm just saying, if he's moaning about that, his grandma just goes into her pocket and just say, here you go, I'll pay for it, there you go.
I know, but there's a difference between private security, Stuart, and Met police protection officers who are entitled to carry guns. That's the whole point of them. So are you saying that...
You can still pay for them, though.
So you're saying the Queen should foot the bill for any of her family's security?
Not should, but she doesn't have to do anything she doesn't want to do. I'm just saying, why, it's a grandson, why don't she just put her under the pocket and just pay for a grandson?
But just to make the point, in Prince Harry's case, he's offering to pay. He's saying, I will pay. I just want the level of protection that I had before I left the UK, which is Met Police, not private. Noel's in Islington. What's your view on this, Noel?
In a quarter of a mile, turn left onto Buckingham Avenue.
He should be allowed to pay the police or Andrew. People are saying because of the grandchildren of the Queen, but they forget that they've lost their royal privileges.
Take the next left onto Buckingham Avenue, then your destination will be on the left.
Pay for their private protection. Look at Jay-Z. Jay-Z comes from America here. He pays his private security.
Yes.
Harry can do the same thing.
But Jay-Z had a choice about having a profile, whereas if you're born into royalty, you don't. It's just something that happens at birth.
Yeah, but when you're born in royalty and you lose your privilege...
Your destination is on the left.
No longer HRH, is he?
No, that's true. Well, he's not allowed to use it in an official capacity anyway, which you could argue rather makes it completely redundant. Well, that's it for another day from me. I will be back next week from 4 till 7 on Sunday. Don't forget to listen to LBC tomorrow at 9 a.m. for Call Keir, your chance to grill the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer as the Partygate scandal rumbles on. Nick Ferrari will have him taking your calls in the morning. Thank you very much for all of your calls, tweets and texts today. Don't forget to download the Global Player app where you can listen back to this, as well as a range of podcasts. Coming up at 10, it's Nick Abbott, but up next, it's Rachel Johnson.
Thank you, Camilla. Well, he was supposed to be training on court. Instead, he's leaving on a jet plane, the world's number...